Hey there, welcome to episode 110 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 10:17 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here in the greater Vegas area on this Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. We do publish new episodes of Quaggling Sand on Wednesdays, usually in the morning, so check those two boxes. Today's title and topic, Idiosyncrasies, Part 2. Last week was part 1. If you're not familiar with the Quaggling Sand audio program, it is essentially audio essays, monologues from yours truly, solo presentations, stories, recollections, tales, stories you may or may not find interesting. I think I said stories twice there. They may be interesting or informative. They may enlighten, educate, or entertain, maybe all three. Who knows? These will usually be told by me, mostly about me, and with only me. So yeah, the solo part. There probably won't be any guests on this program, so there haven't been in 110 episodes, so we got the momentum. If you're not familiar with the term quaggling sand, it is a technical term. It's one I coined when I was very young, the low single digits. You are probably familiar with pins and needles, the sensation you might feel in your arm or your leg, your hand or your foot, wherever. You may have been sleeping funny. It's hard to do sometimes, but sleeping funny, sitting on your foot, leaning on your hand, who knows? They go numb when circulation returns. You probably call it pins and needles, but no, quaggling sand. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, one sentence, along with the two usual links. I have provided no reference information for my idiosyncratic summary. So I'll read the summary to you, and then we'll get on with the show. The summary of today's episode, probably not literally idiosyncrasies. Surely others will have similar traits and others mingled in some combination. But sometimes I think about these and make some connections of my own. Here is part 2. Now, if you heard part 1 last week, that's almost exactly the same summary, because this is part 2. I changed one word, if you remember. The links for today's episode, just like they were last week and probably all the weeks before, give or take. The Quaggling Sand homepage, quaggling is spelled with 2 G's, of course, Quoggling. Okay, that's a third one, but 2 in a row. Quaggling Sand, S-A-N-D, quagglingsand.com. So you can go there and it will be the primary point of publication. We're still on Spotify and thus Amazon, Apple, YouTube, iHeartRadio, maybe. There's an RSS feed. I got to add more places to find it, but an RSS feed if you want to subscribe to it should be all good. I think I need to add the discovery link. I don't think I have the mechanism in place to be so you should be able to type in quagglingsand.com to your favorite RSS subscription tool or podcatcher, specifically for podcasts. If it supports locating auto discovery, they call it the RSS feed link on a web page. Those are available on Spotify's profile page or Apple, I think. Anyway, we'll figure it all out. We'll do a whole episode on podcasting one of these days. And the profile page linking everything. That's my long time in internet years, about 5 years. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. It's a freeform profile page. There are links to all of my audio programs. That's Buy Me an Update on Mondays, Let's Innovate for Vegas on Tuesday, Quaggling Sand on Wednesday, FFS Talk on Thursday, Cafe Genius Impresarios on Friday, and Coffee Solo at least once during that week. One of these days I'm going to try to bump it up to 2 or 3 times a week when I have more to say. In addition, you'll find links to various projects I'm working on, some biographical information at the top. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo/posts is where you find the initial publishing of the Buy Me an Update audio program on Monday mornings. And then it makes its way to Spotify and Apple and all those other places, but you can find it there first. And at the bottom of the profile page, by the way, that's where the name comes from, Buy Me a Coffee, Buy Me an Update. Used to be exclusive, but we're seeing other people Finally, there are some affiliate links at the bottom of the buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page. You're under no obligation to spend any money. But if you use the affiliate links to buy some of the things that I use, I really do use all of those things, I'll get some pennies. Everything that comes through the buymeacoffee.com website, however, including those links, those proceeds go towards the purchase of more coffee or coffee accessories, which is what powers all of my media endeavors. So let's get on with the show. I mentioned I kind of did a little preview at the end of episode 1. So in keeping with that, I am and have been for, I want to say like 8 years now. I have to go check and see exactly, but I think it's 8 years. I have been car-free and carefree, or carefree and car-free, same thing, the whole time. I was eager to drive when I was almost 16, though I had learned to drive when I was 10, visiting my grandparents in Florida, Tampa, on the Tampa side, on the Gulf side. We don't have to say it, the Gulf of what we know. It's not the new one. Punta Gorda, Florida, if you're curious. Driving on a street aptly named Turtle Dove Circle. Learning my way around the clutch and transmission of their old Toyota. I think it was a Corolla. Toyota is known for their super forgiving standard transmission. So that was pretty easy to learn. And the street was a circle. So driving around in a circle, shifting, up, down, getting out of first, the whole nine, all good. I have a few Volkswagen vehicles in my past. I really liked the old 90 horsepower TDI before they modified it, they redid it to 156 horsepower. I think it threw off the mileage. There was no need. 90 horsepower was more than enough. I eventually got the old squared off Scion XB, not the newer or later model with the rounded edges and so on. So the very square Scion's a Toyota brand. Scion XB, standard transmission, of course. It was sometimes called the Xbox by a couple of people I knew. How adorable. And that brought me from house fire in Sunnyvale to tooling around Vegas, among other things. And then I began the world travel thing when I started working for Intel while I was living in Vegas, which meant the old Xbox was sitting a lot. Eventually, when I had to renew emissions registration insurance, and it had been sitting for 7 months, so add in dealing with a dead battery, the time had come to let that car go. Not that S cargo, that's a different thing. I had learned from my world travels, after all this time feeling I needed a car, so many years, like I got to get a car. Oh, I got to trade in this car for another car. I got to always have a car. One of the boxes on the list to check was to have a car. I did not feel that anymore. No more parking, no more concerns about car crimes. Break-ins here in the, I live in the suburbs of Vegas, still in the city of Las Vegas, but up north a little bit. Break-ins are not uncommon, though I never had that one. No one ever broke into my car. Somebody did open my car door when I forgot to lock it one time. I never really kept anything of interest or value in the car, so no drama. The car was still there. And even more interesting, getting around became more deliberate once I didn't have a car. So not only was I not worried about my car getting broken into anymore, but now when I would go somewhere, it wasn't a matter of, I'll just jump in the car and drive 300 yards. I had driven the grocery store that I was going to at the time. I lived in a different place, so now it's even closer. But it was 0.62 miles or 1 kilometer to the back of the grocery store. Because when I used to walk to the gym, I would walk past the grocery store, and I would get a little 1 kilometer buzz on my watch when I was behind the Smiths. So I would occasionally drive to the grocery store. How ridiculous is that? So walking, always better. Planning around bus schedules, walking, again, which is always good. And you should do it more often, so should I. Or the occasional ride share, Lyft. Lyft is better than Uber here in Vegas anyway. Was and continues to be a completely functional way of doing things here in Vegas, which bothers some people who are flabbergasted when I could not have a car and I'm not pursuing getting one. How can you get around Vegas? You can't. Nobody can get around Vegas. And my answer would usually be, well, I'm here talking to you, so apparently it is possible. It is what it is. I can rent a car or whatever sort if I need to. I've rented a U-Haul vehicle. It's probably my more interesting recent rental to move, right? So having or not having a car is not, it's the modern era. And I'm a 7-minute walk from the main. I'm not going to call it a terminal, but a transit center, and that's still doing a lot of work here. But the 2 useful buses and then the third that I can use to start journeys in Vegas that will bring me to downtown and from there wherever I need to go. 7-minute walk, so that's doable. And then I can rent a car if I really need to, or I can grab a lift, can walk, bicycle even. So I prefer being car free. I know people are going to get, maybe you're even feeling a little anxious right now. Ooh, I got to have a car. Vegas, or basically people on the West Coast of the United States, or the farther you get from the East Coast, especially the Manhattan area. Now, when you go to Manhattan, or maybe I'm trying to think of some place that would be not on the East Coast, but there are some places where you can kind of get away with not having a car. Probably like Seattle, certain parts of like Portland, maybe, but certainly Seattle. Seattle is known for their bus system. The East Coast, the New York area, the tri-state area, Port Authority buses. You can do a lot of commuting without a car. So it is possible in various places. It really depends on their public transit system, the walkability, the bikeability of a particular area, and then rideshare works, and renting a car if I need to. If I needed to get some sort of a pickup truck to move something, or a van, U-Haul is really easy. It's not a problem. But yeah, some people are really put off by that if they are not themselves in a car-free, carefree culture. Again, Seattle area, Manhattan. And when you leave Manhattan or Brooklyn, basically the New York area, if you leave that area, you're still looking back to like, okay, you can catch a train from New York through Harlem to Fort Lee in New Jersey and go from there. You can catch a bus and whatnot. But once you're in New Jersey, for example, where I was born, you really got to have a car. It's hard to get around. You're pretty much walking or trying to find a taxi or something. But I think it's a lot, again, more deliberate to not have a car. I used to, well, we're going to get to this in a second, but I really actually don't like renting cars. I would rather try to figure out how to get around, because you actually have to pay a little bit more attention to your surroundings. Where's the bus stop? What time is it? You will probably talk to more people asking simple questions like, is the bus stop around here? So generally speaking, I vastly prefer not having to deal with a car, but that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, believe it or not. I am a remote local, or a local remote. No, remote local. I think I tend in that direction. I lost my taste for default car ownership, or leasing a car even, during my world travels for Intel, but I also lost my taste for being a visitor in remote places. Living in Vegas might be a part of that, since very roughly 20 times the Clark County population visits each year. We have something like 2.3 million, and tourism has been as high as 46 million, I think. We'll leave an asterisk by that because I don't know if that's really true, but it's been over 40 million, probably 39 million this year. And so there is a strong local tourist gap, local/tourist, right? Lots and lots of tourists. My very first trip to Ireland for Intel included 3 accommodations. I stayed in a golf castle in Leixlip, technically Minute, I think, but certainly somewhere near the Intel site in Leixlip. So it was on the same main street. Stayed in that castle. I stayed in a normal hotel, and that one I can never remember the name of that one. And then I stayed at the Adelphi House, which was like a bed and breakfast spot downtown, and it is no longer called that, but it was very near the Connolly train station. So that was a good one. I could take the train to work. So taking trains, changing hotels, not worried about getting a car rental or looking for taxis so much. I was really much more into taking buses and so on. So yeah, my very first trip, I was doing the coaches, which are buses, and that train to Minute was fun. So Connolly Station all the way to Minute on the train, get off the train, catch the Intel shuttle from the train stop if I was on time. If I didn't get I think it ran until 8:30 in the morning. So if I caught the very next train, I would get there like just after the little shuttle bus would leave. And I think it was just over a mile. So totally walkable, not a problem. Just like I was living there. And I would eventually find a spot or two as my locals, the pubs I would hang out at, the Duke on Dawson. actually, at the intersection of Grafton and Dawson. And not Grafton and Dawson, I'm sorry, Dawson and Duke. There you go. Dawson and Grafton run parallel. So the Duke, the Gilligan Duke, I think it is, the Gilligan family, and 37 Dawson, which is on Dawson, were the two places I hung out at most, just like I was living there. Though there were some other places I would hang out too, but got to know those spots pretty well. It does help to return to faraway places now and then to establish that visiting local familiarity. So if you're only there once, it's a little bit more difficult, but you can certainly, take in the place as though you were a local. And I would follow a similar approach, having returned a couple of times, to Toulouse and Turin. Actually, I was only in Turin once, but I was there for 2 weeks, and I made short work of it. By that point, I was a little bit more comfortable with jumping into a little city. One of these days, I'll tell the story of Odilla chocolates in Turin, and in other places that I visited, although Ireland was certainly number one. I have to admit, I did flip through the tourist spot ads. Sometimes in the good old days, you would see a rack of trifold pamphlets in your hotel lobby. Those have moved online. So websites and various advertisements, or tourismtrips.com, whatever, etc. Early on in my adventures, but it turns out it is possible to find interesting things to see, things to do, people to chat with, by doing what normal people do. You just talk to people. This is the opposite of my trip to Manhattan after graduation in, I think it was 1996. It was 96. It was for New Year's, and it's when the government shut down with Gingrich. So I think it was 96. I've talked about this before, so I won't look it up again, but you probably know. Where my college roommate, one of my roommates, and I did the full tourist thing, which was fun because I had actually been from there, but my former roommate was much better at dead reckoning. He had a certain sensibility about direction. So between the two of us, I had some recollection of the places to go: the MoMA, the Natural History Museum, the Museum of Natural History, and the MoMA, and Central Park, and various other spots. Good times. But we were definitely tourists. Even though we were staying with a friend of his from high school in her apartment right near the Empire State Building. So we were pretending to be locals, but we were tourists. Traveling with others, as I had for that trip, whatever the arrangement, friends, couple, family, whatever it is, if it's you and someone else, or in this case, me and someone else, it can be a challenge already. And while it is always possible to take individual paths out and about, like today I'm going to go here and you can go do whatever you want, that often doesn't, that can become tricky, depending on whatever that relationship and arrangement is. So in my case in Manhattan, if I had said I'm going to go to wherever, in fact, when I went to Hackensack to get some crumb cakes, my roommate was like, "Oh, I'll go. Why not?" So I don't know if it was fun for him. It was definitely annoying because, again, once you get off the tourism tract, you end up being carless, and getting around becomes a little bit tricky. So I don't know if he enjoyed it as much. Traveling solo and taking in a place or places like locals do is, in my opinion, in my experience, vastly superior to going on planned tours or having to follow so much of an itinerary or a plan ahead. Now, if you want to maximize your tourism time and dollar, that's totally different. But if you are just going to take it easy, and I don't know if you can hear that emergency vehicle. Luckily, it's taking its good, slow, long time. Production by street. Gotta love it. So yeah, if you want to maximize your tourism dollar, then I can see having a plan of some sort. But even then, you can have a plan but not be a tourist. You can say, I'm going to see for example, I'll give you one example. When I was in Rome, humble brags. When I was in Rome is not very big. You can walk around Rome, see a lot of Rome, and then end up right where you started again. I think I did a nice walk one day, probably like 13,000 steps if you're measuring your steps. But it was fun to me because I was like, oh, wow, I saw a ton of stuff. I was over at the Colosseum, and then I was over at the Parthenon, and then is it the Parthenon or Pantheon? I always confuse those. Some other ruins, and so I was wandering around, ran into one of my coworkers randomly, We were there for Maker Faire that year. So you can see the touristy spots, the tourist attractions, as they say. But I didn't have a plan per se because I could just wander around, kind of take it all in. But if I was to say, I want to go see I want to see if the Pope is around. So I'm going to go to Vatican City there. And we had dinner right by Vatican City one night. So it's like, oh, there's the Vatican right there. I could just want to wander over there. It was later in the evening, but that would be something where and you can jump in and out of that, right? You can say, oh, today we're going to be tourists. It's always possible to lean over into the tourist mode if needed. We could have. It's still there if I ever go again. It's also just fine not to do that and to just be a person enjoying a place. So, and that will rub people the wrong way sometimes. How can you go to Rome and not see the whatever, right? Sorry. But speaking of going it alone, I guess, the fortress of solitude, which I referred to last week, solo travel fit well into my overall take. I like an empty gym, a solo project, although I do like to work with about 2 or 3 other people total on something, but I tend to often work by myself and then we'll meet up and sync up and all that. I can't say that's universally true. It depends on the crew, the group of people. I have through my career had occasion where a group of about, about 4 to 5 people that all kind of click nicely. We're able to do some productive work and have fun doing it and so on. So it can happen. But generally speaking, I'm pretty good on my own, doing my thing and then syncing up later. And then not worrying about roommates, of course. I know that it's always tricky. It's not always a great idea. Living solo. What if I choke on a grape? I just don't eat grapes. But it is essential to me. Looking back, I would say that my high school schedule, catching the bus at around 6 a.m., I think it was 6:15 or 6:10 or something, hanging out on our empty campus, the high school, for a while until more people would show up, probably around 7. I think it was around 7. My 6:10 bus would get me to the campus around 6:30, 6:35. So I'd have like 20 minutes of solitude. It's always nice. Getting out with my days, that's where it started, I think. So I just kind of like no pressure. As I've gotten older, I'm finding my desire to spend time with other people continues to decline. We can blame the pandemic and the lockdowns and weirdness that followed and the current state of the world, of course. But for whatever reason, I seem to be surrounded at all times and on all sides by apathetic people. I used to say this is something one encountered on arriving in Vegas, as I did 12 years ago, a little over 12 years now. And it is contagious. And I have to say, I think this may actually be true. Actually, I know it's true. So no matter how not apathetic and how much of a people person you are when you get to Vegas, if you move here, you will soon find that after enough ghostings, enough non-replies, enough asymmetric requests, oh, can you help me with something? And then as soon as I get what I need from you, I'm never going to speak to you again. That kind of stuff. You really can start to develop a disdain for people. And I was predisposed to that, I think, when I got here. If there's a place where taking this tack is going to be an interesting ride, it is a place like Vegas, which has an infinite supply of diversion, with all manner of transactional personalities. And many of them, not all, but many, do not understand this. And so people will get bent out of shape or worse when they learn that they cannot ghost people and then get a response when they want or need a response or they need a favor or something. They just don't seem to understand that, like, you blew me off for like 6 months. Oh, well, can you help me with this? Of all the things, this is probably the facet least understood by people around me, and I actually wish more people did, and not for my sake. This is not a me thing so much as a we thing, and we have a problem that could be blamed on social media or who knows what else. So in other words, if you are in a place that doesn't quite understand the notion of being helpful, and spoiler alert, there's a show on Apple TV, which I'm catching the first season with my Black Friday Apple TV promotion. I think it's like half price, and it's been worthwhile. I also watched Severance, which was first season was great, second season, but anyway, the people, the characters in the show are very nice, and I'll just say that they're profoundly nice because they, anyway, I don't want to give the plot away. in a place like Vegas, it's kind of the opposite. Now, we're not talking Manhattan or New York in general, right? Probably the Bronx, some other places where people are sort of self-absorbed. They got their thing to do, but somehow they will help each other out when the chips are really down, 9/11 and so on. That's like a weird balance. But here in Vegas, people just kind of blow you off. They'll just not respond in any way. I get this all the time. I would say 100% of the time. So, but again, if they reach out to you, they'll treat it, hey, how's it going? I haven't talked to you in a while. And you're like, yeah, I know. You've ignored everything that and that just doesn't faze anybody. And I don't understand that. So I basically have bought into the program. I'm in full ghost mode. And then I am unfazed when people reach out to me for something and then I don't respond. And then they're vexed by this. So I don't know if that's a vindictive apathy. I don't know. But I honestly don't know if people understand that they're doing it or if it's just kind of built into their personal solipsism or something. I don't really know. But at the same time, I'm actually interested in helping people. So I do not like people for the most part. I also think there is a value in helping them. And I know that doesn't make sense. I mean, while most of the people I encounter in my own circles get on my nerves, they disappoint, maybe both. The world at large is stocked full of people who know nothing of these traits. They are doing their thing, living their lives. Maybe I'm trying to live mine and we can all get along on that point. So there are people in the world that I have not blown them off. They have not blown me off. We've never talked before, but they probably have some of the same things going on that the rest of humanity does. We all want to get older, which means we may at some point be less able to get around to do the things we've been doing forever. And we will hopefully be surrounded by modern day convenience that will make life better or at least reasonable. We're talking assistive technologies and accessible methodologies. This is one of the areas that piques my interest, sort of like educational toys used to, but this is more runway ahead of it. What did I write here? Runway ahead of it, I think. Okay, not if I think. Runway ahead of it, if I think. In other words, educational toys, you're pretty much aging out of them, but assistive technologies, aging in place, some people might call it, or living in place is another term that's more popular now. You're aging into that, and that can take a lot longer, right? You may get an educational toy when you're 5, and by the time you're 7, you're like, what is this? If you are benefiting from some initial interactions with assistive technologies or accessible methodologies, right? Getting access to websites with large type and high contrast or whatever it is. The list is many. 2 years later, you're only benefiting more from those things. So you're kind of aging into them and the technologies are hopefully rising up to meet you. So yeah, we all want to be older, I think. This is one of the interest areas that piques my interest, like I said. So this is where I'm kind of pointing some of my attention. I think Vegas is an interesting place to look at that kind of stuff because of that flux of visitors. Some fraction of them will have various limitations. I find that most people are more interested in accessibility, which is arguably easier to consider. Again, your website can be accessible if you put a little bit of time and effort into it. But assistive technologies is arguably bigger and more important. They both are, but this is a hard argument to make on 2 reasonably good legs with all 5 senses functioning. In other words, people don't really listen to me because what do I know? Most people I encounter are convinced there is no money here to be made in development of assistive technology. Well, who's doing it then? Somebody is. But there's no money in that. And the answer to that is always the same, because you aren't there yet. They're in the same boat. They're fine. Everything's fine. I don't need any of that stuff, so I don't see the value. But give it some time, they will get there, and then suddenly, how come I can't see this? What's this step here? There's a street corner where I live very near. It's been like this for 12 years. There's a ramp. If you are wheelchair, scooter, walker, cane, crutches, anything that will help you step off a curb or avoid doing that, so you can take a ramp down into the street to do the crosswalk. It's a high volume street, so you can press the button for the crosswalk signal, the pedestrian signal. Between the ramp, the sidewalk, and the button is a little wall and landscaping that includes something like lava rocks that are dangerous to walk on if you are completely able-bodied. So you can only reach that button if you're able to walk. It's been like that for 12 years. And I've shown it to people who are in the accessibility and assistive technologies areas, and they immediately say that, oh, this is dangerous. No, it's a safety feature. So people don't pay attention to that until they need to. That's one of the points I make often. Most of the things that have my interest are longer term, structural, small or large scale, about addressing pain points in one way or another, more easily with software leaning technologies, of course. You can develop software pretty quickly and easily, but we will move towards hardware and more tangible things eventually, or not. But it's interesting to me that for as much as people really, really bother me, and I really don't care for them often, I still am one, and I do know some decent ones. So when I think about the future and the application of the things that I've learned over the years, I think there's got to be something better to do than, some people like to work on weapons. Some people like to work on selling things. Some people like to work on Bitcoin or whatever. So we all have our things. So those are the things I could think of. I don't think a part 3 will be necessary in the near term. Somewhere down the road, perhaps, if something really does occur to me, or a couple of things do. But let me close this out with some detritus, some of the crumbs that aren't really all that big a deal, I think. I generally avoid, like the plague, bananas, mushrooms, like button mushrooms that you find on a pizza. Some other mushrooms are okay, but generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of mushrooms. Tuna fish from a can is disgusting, though I do like tuna sushi. Can't explain that, I don't know. And organ meats, livers, kidneys, all that stuff, pretty much across the board I avoid. I used to be a more fussy eater. This changes the more you get out and about, I think. But yeah, generally speaking, that's my keep out list. It's not too big. I don't think that's too unreasonable. Bananas are because of the smell of bananas. I think a durian, which is allegedly like the stinkiest fruit available on the planet, is bad. But I think I tried it, or at least I smelled it, and bananas to me are worse, but that's to me. I like cilantro, that's fine. So I'm not a big, huge fan of pineapple, but I'm okay with it, I guess. Except on pizza, no way. But yeah, so my list of keep outs is short, I think. And avoiding organ meats. Hey, that's more for you to have if you like them, so jump in. I prefer aisle over window for flying somewhere. I like the exit row if at all possible. I don't think that's too unusual. But I'm filling out this closing section, so I figured I'd throw that in there. What might be unusual, I prefer to stop over taking direct flights. Why would I like this? I've heard some people are freaked out when I say this. I like to get out of the plane. I like to wander around the airport, especially if there's when I was traveling for Intel, I was on 100 airplanes a year. That meant, some of those airplanes were legs of a journey. So it's interesting to check out a new airport. I've been to many. Grab some quick not airplane food if I'm hungry, or grab a coffee or something if I'm thirsty, or if I want to just hang out and check my email. Smell the coffee, so to speak. Stop and smell the coffee. It's just to get out of the plane. There's no good reason to be in a plane for 12 hours if you can be in one plane for 7 hours, get out for a while, and be on another plane for 5 hours, right? I know some people who are almost violently against this notion, the notion of stopping a journey for any reason. I would rather take a break, look around. This is not so true when you're on ground transportation. I think I've taken bus rides where if you have to take the long way, it's not quite as fun, but it's buses don't have quite the network of travel legs and so on. You can. It's not impossible. I would like to take a train at some point. That might be interesting. There you can kind of get up and move around, but the train is still moving. I really wanted to do the Siberian Express. I don't know about that one. I think Russia might be not the best place to pass through on a train, but those are some interesting journeys. The trains have different gauges when you change countries. So even though there's a route that passes through multiple countries, they have to literally lift the cars up of the train and change the trucks so that it can fit on the different tracks. It's kind of wacky, according to the pictures I've seen anyway. I never tried that. But these, if you have to change trains or buses, it's not a deal breaker, but airplanes, definitely, especially if you're scrunched into a tiny little seat. I simply cannot abide by people who are again, almost violently, but they're like, oh no, we must get a direct flight. I'm not stopping. All right. Well, I'll be out in the airport having a coffee and relaxing. I think adults should also be banned from social media. That'll be my final controversial take. Generally speaking, technology is in its harmful stage right now for a while, and very few people, relatively speaking, seem to be taking that seriously. AI is only making it all worse. I think cell phones should not be banned in schools. That means, the example I always give is driver's education. Young people are going to drive vehicles. So you do not ban them in school. You provide an educational infrastructure. You have a driver's ed class, and you have parking lots where students can drive to school and then park their cars, and then teachers are around keeping an eye on things, in my experience. And you go from there. I mean, you're going to be using a car. It'd be like saying math is scary. Don't learn it in school. Wait until later. So I think banning phones, banning access to the internet and various resources online, not good. But I think social media, social networking has been the destruction of society and certainly of human sanity and interaction. It may have contributed to the solipsism I referred to before. I don't know. People are in their own little world. I don't think it's good. I spend less time on social media proactively. There are probably some other things I have been pondering since I did part one. Are these idiosyncrasies really, or are they just preferences or proclivities? Individuality is a thing, but maybe some of these are slightly less common, but not all that unique. It's probably more interesting in the sum of all of these and anything I did not think of, and how some sort of a through line might be determined. Like maybe everything that I've described thus far makes me a particular places beyond the political spectrum, the 2D spectrum or a 3D spectrum. Who knows? But yeah, that's it. Nothing too much. If I come up with a part 3, I will create another episode. But I think there have probably been some other things that have come out in my various stories to date. So 108 of them have been about other things other than idiosyncrasies. So now 110 episodes in, we've got some of these sorted out. Next week we'll come up with, is it next week? No. 2 weeks on the 31st of December. The 24th, try to do something fun for the holidays. We're in the holidays now, by the way. They're not going so great depending on where you are, but we're in them. And then on the 31st of December, it will be the final episode of Quaggling Sand for the year. So I'll try to have something fun. May or may not succeed. We'll see. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with this 2-parter. And we'll catch you later. Take care. Bye-bye.